Hi, it's City the Shee, and I gotta get my little pad of paper because I was going to go over some items for you. Now, my friend the Being Guide is helping me. Okay, so where are we going? Okay, so Drunvalo Melchizedek, you can find him on YouTube, is talking about how we're moving to unitary consciousness. So that means basically we're going to be having major telepathy coming in. Now, I already have telepathy with, all of my guides, and but I don't have them with humans. Although sometimes the humans that I see in the outside physical world start talking to me on the inside, and I haven't quite figured out how that is. It's like, I don't know. I can't figure it out. I don't know if it's the higher selves of these physical beings that I'm seeing in the outside. I don't understand how that works, but it does happen from time to time. Anyway, this is Drunvalo Melchizedek, and he says that that's why we're having so many bizarre things happening to us. A lot of ascension symptoms. Ascension, as we ascend to higher dimensions, that's why we're going to unitary consciousness, because it's higher dimensions is higher frequencies of consciousness, and spiritual gifts come when you're in higher consciousness. I'm terribly sorry. This is not really... I thought it would be a very smooth video, and it's not. I'm kind of jumping around here, some few ideas that I had here, and they're not really flowing so well. Okay, I wanted to talk about Canada, where there was an increase in the carbon tax April 1st, 2019, and in my opinion, this... I mean, the goal is from environmentalists to stop using carbon. But the problem is that the deep state is sitting on all the alternatives to using fossil fuel. They have got all kinds of technologies for essentially free energy for people. 0-point energy, small nuclear fusion, like you saw in Back to the Future, I think it was part 2. All these kinds of technologies are available. How do I know? You're in a universe 3.5 billion years old with trillions and trillions of star systems. And if you figure that Earth society, which is, less than 150 years past horse and buggy, if you think Earth society is the most advanced civilization in the multiverse, you're nuts. There's plenty of advanced civilizations far beyond us, and they do have these technologies, and they're not being given to us because the deep state doesn't want us to have them. And the ones that they're working with are very dark, demonic civilizations. The Draco reptilians, for example. And the other benevolent extraterrestrials, well, I wish they would come in and kick out these ones that are running us, the deep state. But that's not the plan. The plan is not to use violence against violence. It's to use consciousness to overpower those who would use control. Okay, so it's consciousness. So that's why when you get the really advanced civilizations, they are not coming and offering you a bunch of guns to go and fight. It's not like when the Americans went into Afghanistan and gave the rebels against the Russians a bunch of Stinger missiles. It's not like that. They want you to raise your own consciousness, become a more spiritual being, and then allow for synchronicity and serendipity to bring good things to us. So it's a big wake-up call. It's to know this stuff is available, but it's not like for us to focus on. We have to focus on meditation, inner silence, getting away from all of the electronic gizmos. And I'm talking to an electronic gizmo, but this is to communicate to you, because I've already done this work. I've spent 25 years doing this kind of inner work on a spiritual journey. And, if you're watching this, maybe you've done some stuff and this is a curiosity, or maybe it's brand new to you. But, take it from someone who's been doing this for a long time. You don't have to follow the morality police, okay? If you've been, anyway, all I mean is that it's not traditional. You don't have to go and join a monastery or become a nun in the Catholic Church in order to go on a spiritual journey. You don't. It's a fallacy, and it's a control system, so you don't need that. But what I wanted to talk about was the deep state. They keep racking up the prices of fossil fuel gasoline and natural gas that are used in Canada to fuel the cars and heat the homes. Everyone knows that it's very cold in Canada in the winter, and the deep state is using environmentalism as a way to screw the people. Who suffers the most? The poor. The working poor who can barely make it, they can barely make ends meet. Rent is so high, prices of houses are so high, mortgages are ridiculous, restaurant meals are insane, wages are stagnant and crappy if you're a working person. So it's just one more way to squeeze the working poor who can't afford more expensive gas, and unfortunately these other technologies are not available. So this is definitely deep state. This is how they go and twist the knife into the working people by raising taxes, and then gifting billions of dollars to General Motors, who closes the car plant in Oshawa, Canada, and then our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says, you don't have to pay the billions back, General Motors. Clearly, Justin Trudeau does not work for the people. He works for big corporate America. Or maybe it's not even America. Maybe I should just call it big corporations, multinationals who aren't even, they have no loyalty to America. They have no loyalty to humanity. Their only loyalty is to their stockholders. Am I anti-capitalist? I'm telling you, capitalism is the biggest evil on this planet. And capitalists are capital lusts, L-U-S-T-S, lusts. They have lusts to control people. They have lusts to own everything. It's just horrible. But anyway, these tax increases are unnecessary, and they're used under the guise of helping the environment. They're not helping the environment. Everyone knows that Canada is a small population relative to the whole planet. India and China are huge, and they don't have these carbon taxes. And in Pakistan, they keep opening more and more coal-fired plants. So what little can be done in a small country like Canada does not offset the enormous amounts of burning of fossil fuels in these other countries. So it's not doing any good for the environment. It's screwing the people. And there's a lot of Canadians that are too stupid to look into this, and it's the same worldwide. They're too busy with sound bites, and this is what I should do. It's like, what should I do? They don't know. They don't know because they don't meditate. If you went within and you meditated and you connected with your inner wisdom, you would know. But they can't because they don't do it. They'd rather go and drink wine every weekend, and when they get a chance, they'll go to Jamaica on a vacation at the resort, and they'll get drunk every day. You're not going to have a spiritual journey if you're drunk every day. No. But this is the reason why people don't have any inner wisdom, and all they can go by is what they see on the Huffington Post. or the National Post or CBC News. And that is no way to get wisdom, because these things are control structures by the deep state to keep you stupid. Okay. The other thing that somebody said is the problem with plastics. So many plastic bags and bottles ending up in landfills or just blowing down the street and into the nearest river or lake. And someone's idea is, well, we just got to put more deposits on them. Like, when you do with pop cans or beer cans, you put 5 or 10 cent deposit on it. This is another case of screwing the poor. Because for someone who's wealthy, it's no big whoop to pay a deposit on whatever you're buying. But if you're struggling to make ends meet, somebody's going to say, well, you get the money back. But you don't have the money in the first place. You are strapped. You can barely get by. And then they're going to go and raise the prices of all the stuff that's in plastic bottles. And they're already charging you for plastic bags. Now, what happens for that? Well, the plastic bag charge is it's not returnable to you. It's pure profit for Walmart. So, it's the rich twisting the knife in the back of the poor, as they always do. And as far as putting these deposits on, it hurts the poor. It hurts the poor, the working poor, because they can't afford to have more and more. It doesn't sound like much, but they don't have it. They are completely stretched to the limit. In Toronto, Ontario now, a one-bedroom apartment is $2,500 a month on average. People that are working poor cannot afford any more price hikes. So then what happens? Okay, so then in the big cities, you've got the binners, the even poorer than the working poor are the people who live off of bottle deposits. And you see them jumping into dumpsters, the dumpster divers, and going through all the garbage that's already been bagged and tagged to go and look for these nickel and 10 cent bottles and cans that weren't put in the right thing. And you're saying, well, that's great. That's great. Unfortunately, these people are basically homeless. How could you help these people? Well, you could raise the deposit on a beer can from a nickel to $1, so that they could make enough money doing this that they could maybe afford. I don't know if they'd ever get to 2,500 cans in a month. But then again, you'd be helping the binners, but the people who are working poor, that's not going to help them if you put these deposits up to $1 a can or $1 a bottle. It's quite likely that a technology solution could be used. Basically all the garbage could be processed and checked, and biodegradable bottles. Really, it's really stupid. The truth of the matter is that the environmentalists are right. When you see this garbage there, it's basically human laziness. It's human laziness not to go and recycle your stuff. The other problem you've got with recyclables, I had it today. I had a speed stick deodorant. And I don't know if it's recyclable in my city. Not everything that is plastic is if it was, I would just throw it in the bin. But we're supposed to know. And apparently some plastics have got a little recyclable code number. It's like a 2 or a 3, and it's in a kind of like a triangle shape. And you're supposed to remember which ones are recyclable and which ones aren't based upon the number. I'm sorry. You think my memory's good because I'm smart? No. I'm wise, but I am not really good at keeping track of, all this minutia about, 2 is a recyclable and threes are not in my particular city where I am, and it's different everywhere else. No, I'm not good at this. This system is the shits. It's the shits. If it's plastic, it could be recycled. It could be. But in my town, it's some of it is and some of it isn't, and I can't figure it out. And then the other problem is that for us old folks, when our eyes can't focus up close anymore, like a 12-year-old can, we have to go and get cheater glasses and magnifying glasses to look at small print to try and even see what it says. It's a pain in the ass. And don't get me started when we start talking about going to the pharmacy to go and buy drugs, and you try and read what is written on the side of a bottle of aspirin to try and figure out how many aspirins you need, or anything to do with drugs. The print is unbelievably small. The local phone book, you got a landline, you get a phone book still. You can't read it with bare eyes. You can't. It used to be, it was a bigger book. Well, and people are going to say, well, I mean, it's paper. You don't need it. You could look it up on the internet. Old people, senior citizens, don't have computers. They still don't. If you're 86 years old, like my aunt, she doesn't have a computer. She doesn't have the internet. She uses paper. Okay, so there's still people that have got landlines they always had landlines, and they need phone books. And you can't use a phone book now because it's too small. The print is too small. If you're a young person working for the phone company, I'm telling you, you need to know your customer, and these customers are your senior citizens, and they're having a hell of a hard time just being old. And then you throw a monkey wrench at them like tiny, tiny print. You're not doing them a favor. I'm sorry. So, where do we go from this? Oh, the pain, okay? Now, in my previous videos, I've said pain is here to wake you up. Wake you up to what? Wake you up to a lot of things. Wake you up to the society that is run for the benefit of the very, very few at the expense of everyone else. It's to wake you up to the fact that you are a spirit having a human experience. And you are basically a being that is only here, well, maybe for various reasons. But, one other YouTube video said in the next 5 to 25 years, it will become very obvious to most people that that's the truth, that we are spirit beings having a human experience, and that death is not the end of your consciousness. And even I'm going to predict that sometime down the line that we will be able to regenerate bodies. I don't know when. It's not given to me to say. But there are definitely beings that don't have physical bodies that still have consciousnesses, believe it or not. And where else did I want to go with that? Well, the pain that you get. A lot of the older people especially get a lot of pain, but there's also the ascension symptoms. So like ringing of the ears, unexplainable flus, migraine headaches, just general aches and pains that, if you're a young person and you're thinking to yourself, I'm 25 or 35, I shouldn't be as sick as I am. It's quite possible, especially if the doctor can't find anything wrong with you, that you've got ascension symptoms. And, then just go and Google ascension symptoms, go on to YouTube and look up ascension symptoms, and you'll see that, there's plenty of people that are talking about the new energies that are coming onto planet Earth. And these energies, when they get in your body, well, a lot of times they cause these aches and pains. And the aches and pains are to wake you up. It's to go and get you to go onto YouTube and the internet to start researching everything to do with spiritual journeys, consciousness. Okay? But what happens in our society is people have aches and pains, they go to the doctor and they're prescribed Seroquel to sleep, Percocet, which is an opioid, to control the pain, medical marijuana to control the pain. So you're not really waking up. It's basically a band-aid on these symptoms. Now, I do have aches and pains, but I'm in my 50s, so you might think that's expected. No, I have unusual aches and pains that I didn't even have more than a year ago. It's ascension symptoms. And even though I see a physiotherapist each week, they don't get better. It's ascension symptoms. So waking me up, well, I'm already well aware of all this stuff, and I don't take opioids. I don't even take aspirin. It's very rare. It's only if I've got an unbelievably bad headache that's lasted for like 12 hours that I will take aspirin. Well, these pills, the opioids are working on your physical body to block pain. And, people say, I don't want the pain, but you have to get to the spiritual reason that you're having the pain. The spiritual reason for a lot of problems comes up in the form of what's going on in your body. And you can go and you can look up, what is the metaphysical cause of disease? And you can look up mostly emotional problems. It's mostly emotional problems and traumas. And, you can look them up and see what it says. And maybe it'll resonate with you, maybe it won't. It depends on how far you are on your spiritual journey. But, if you get down far enough into your spiritual journey, you will discover that everything is consciousness. It's not physical. Even though this is supposedly a physical body, it's only because we're living with the collective consciousness of humanity that thinks that this is a physical body. And that's why we treat things with, physical medicine. But where we're going, because everything is consciousness and we're ascending to higher realms of consciousness, we're all going to figure it out. Everything is in consciousness. And you'll be able to deal with your aches and pains by figuring out what it is in your subconscious or your unconscious that's coming up, bubbling up to the surface, causing you pain, but it's there so you can recognize what exactly is it. What is it that's causing this pain? And it's not physical things causing pain. It's not toxicities. It's something to do with mostly your psychology. Your belief structures are coming up for review. The conditioning that you've had, it's almost like, if you look into psychology, and there's operant conditioning and classical conditioning. It's how you train animals, animal training. And humans are trained by our society just as if we are rats in a cage. It's true. So there's a lot of things that we have been told to and lied to, but told so many times in so many different ways, and that we just come to accept it. But it's not coming from your inner wisdom, it's coming from stuff that you've heard. But this stuff all is coming up because it's untrue. So stuff that is untrue is coming up, and it's in your unconscious. In other words, you're not conscious of what it is. You don't know what you've been conditioned to believe. It's like, I believe this, I believe that. Where did you get that from? You heard it, or you saw it, you read it. It's not coming from your inner wisdom, from your soul level. You have to connect to your soul level to get to your inner wisdom. You have to meditate to do that. You have to turn off the television, turn off some of the YouTubes are very good. They'll get you there. But, the problem with it is, how do you tell which YouTube is good and which isn't? Just by listening to it, you can't tell. So, you can listen to some of these things. The better thing for you to do is turn it all off. But come back to me, because I'm really good, just so you know. But I'm going to tell you what to do. Go and don't sit and take what I have to say and say, this is true. You have to go by yourself, go for a nature walk, Get away from other people that are yipping about the Kardashians or the sports channel. You have to go and connect with your inner wisdom, and then you check it out. You check it out within yourself if I'm telling you the truth or not. I am telling you the truth, but I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to check in yourself. Check with your own inner wisdom, and I want you to do that all the time so that there's never anyone who's going to pull the wool over your eyes again. Okay? So anyway, the pain that you have, you can look into, well, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness is a book you can buy by Dr. David R. Hawkins, which is excellent at telling you where you, if you're on the scale of consciousness, the scale of human consciousness, he'll explain it in the book, or you can find some videos of his on YouTube, but get the book, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, and it teaches you what's going to come up at different levels of consciousness that you're going to have to, that's going to bubble up from your subconscious or your unconscious, and it's things for you to recognize. And there's all kinds of stuff that's in our unconscious, subconscious, and you have to do the work because it's not going to get done for you. I really want to do the work for you. I want to make it easy for you. And the more people who do go through the process are going to help you. We're clearing away a lot of the negativities, the people who are already doing the inner work, you know. It was very hard for the Buddha to do what he did, to become enlightened. Far, far harder. It's way easier today because there's way more people now on spiritual paths. So the collective consciousness of humanity is more used to going on these spiritual journeys and doing this work. So it's just easier. The resources are available. They never had all the number of books, and they never had the internet. They never had all this stuff. You know, they used to have to go to a cave in Tibet and meditate by themselves. You don't have to do that anymore. It's way easier, but you still have to do your part. It's easier, way easier. So you mean you're way ahead of the people that worked way harder hundreds of years ago, but you still have to do it. You have to disconnect from the Huffington Post, NBC News, your video games, your booze, your drugs. Although maybe you might want to try some psychedelics, I really debate suggesting that to you. I really debate it. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. And the problem is, it's just like Percocets and Seroquel. Once you start using psychedelics, it's an addiction. It's as addictive as cocaine, crack cocaine. Because you start, it's like, oh my God, it's a mind blower, this is wonderful. But then you're dependent upon these psychedelic drugs to get you there. And it's a shortcut. But it doesn't get you there. It shows you where you can go, but you're addicted to it. You keep taking them and taking them and taking them. And you don't need that. And it's a trap. Because then you're constantly looking for these substances to get you someplace. It's not a permanent fix. I mean, once this psychedelic is worn off, well, you're back at ground zero again. And maybe you've got some memory of some, bizarre things that went on when you were taking these psychedelic things. I'm going to say don't do it. I'm going to say don't do it, because other people, you can go on YouTube, and you can go to like Joe Rogan on YouTube and listen to him talk about psychedelics. And then say, okay, well, he's explained to me what you're going to see on psychedelics. And then don't do it. Meditate instead. Go for a nature walk. Because you'll be able to connect, once you get the idea of what they're getting out of their psychedelics, you don't have to go and follow that path. Follow your own path. And don't use the psychedelics. You're going to be able to connect with your higher spirit, your higher wisdom without it. It's just because we are in the time of the Great Awakening. It's very easy to do this. It's very easy. You don't need all this stuff. It was like in the 1950s when LSD was invented. The state of society, it was unbelievably constricting. It was very constricting. It wasn't like it is now. There was no, well, I wasn't around in the 50s, but the society was totally controlled by mainstream news. And there was a lot of the old churches. People don't go to churches anymore, but in the 1950s, it was a big thing, morality police of the churches. So you had the mainstream news, and you had the churches, and and then you had the power brokers that ran the political system, the party bosses that ran the politicians, and they still do run the politicians. The politicians are filthy, dirty things. They're disgusting, and in our future, we're not going to be using a representative government. We're not going to be electing somebody to go to some parliament or a Congress to go and represent us and make laws. That's very primitive. It sounds good, but that's when you're in horse and buggy days and you're living in Iowa, and you got to get somebody over to Washington D.C. to talk about these things. We don't live like that. And even in today's world, I mean, look at this. The state of California has got only 2 senators. The state of California is got the same population as the country of Canada. So it should be its own country. It's not. And out of 50 states, it's got 2 senators. It's totally unfair. It is totally unfair if you're American. And then Rhode Island, a tiny little place, what is it, maybe less than 200,000, also gets 2 senators, and that's fair. Your republic is not fair. It is not democracy. It is run by basically the filthy rich who buy off the politicians and get what they want. But, where we're going is we won't be using these systems. These are old systems from the past. And I know people keep saying, well, it's the best we got and it's better than communism. You have to get away from this kind of thinking. It's like either or. Either you have communism or capitalism, or, communism and republicanism or democracy. It's old system. It's old system. Durunvalo Melchizedek says we're going to unitary consciousness, telepathy. So, well, what's the point of sending somebody to go and talk with their mouth at Congress when you're going to have the oversouls, the higher minds, the higher dimensional versions of you, which you're not in contact with right now, most of you, but these higher dimensional versions of you, hard to believe, but it's true, higher dimensional, much wiser, much bigger versions of you, far smarter, far more wise. These versions of mind are the ones that are going to run things as we move to higher dimensions. Earth ascension, we're ascending to higher dimensions. So that's basically what I want to tell you to look into. Still meditate. Try and cut down on your booze consumption. If you're taking a lot of opiates for pain, try meditation. I know it's hard when you're used to taking pills and the pills work, but I'll tell you, I know old people, very old people in their 90s that are prescribed opiates because they say, they're in pain. And I'm sure they're in pain, but they take such high doses of fentanyl, it would kill you, the doses that these old people take, because they're dependent on that. So you're going to get dependent on opiates, you're going to get dependent on psychedelics, you get dependent on cocaine, you get dependent on alcohol. Don't get dependent on all this stuff. Don't. It's your choice, but, think about it. I'm Siddhi the Shee.